In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath between night and day, ancient stones whisper secrets that modern minds struggle to comprehend. Across the globe, monuments rise from earth and sand, their shadows telling stories of hands that worked with precision beyond our current understanding. These are not mere buildings of brick and mortar, but riddles carved in granite and limestone, puzzles placed by ancestors whose knowledge seems to mock our technological age. Each perfectly fitted stone, each impossible angle, each mysteriously transported megalith stands as testament to capabilities we have yet to rediscover. In the gentle darkness of this moment, let these architectural mysteries unfold before you like dreams made manifest, each wonder more impossible than the last, each solution more elusive than moonlight on water. If this journey into history gently moves you, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps more sleepy minds find their way here. By the way, where in the world are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment before you drift off. We read every single one. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands beneath the eternal stars, its limestone faces catching the last whispers of daylight as evening settles over the Nile Valley. For 46 centuries, this monument has challenged every assumption about ancient capability, every theory about primitive construction methods. Its builders, working in an age before steel tools, before pulleys as we know them, before the mathematical principles we consider fundamental, somehow achieved a precision that would strain modern engineering. The base of this pyramid measures 755.43 feet on each side, with an error margin of less than 2 inches. To grasp this achievement, imagine laying out a foundation the size of nearly 8 football fields with the accuracy of a master watchmaker. The ancient architects achieved this using tools of copper and stone, measuring instruments we can only theorize about, and methods that remain shrouded in mystery. Each limestone block weighs between 2 and 15 tons, yet they fit together, with tolerances tighter than those found in modern construction. The pyramid's orientation reveals another impossibility. Its sides align with the cardinal directions to within 3/60th of a degree, a precision that requires not just sophisticated surveying equipment, but also an intimate understanding of celestial mechanics. The ancient builders somehow accounted for the true north, not magnetic north, achieving an accuracy that modern construction rarely matches, even with GPS technology and laser levels. Within this mathematical marvel, the interior chambers present their own puzzles. The king's chamber houses a granite sarcophagus that weighs more than 3 tons, yet it's larger than the passages leading to the chamber. This means the sarcophagus was positioned during construction, requiring the builders to plan every detail of the pyramid's interior before laying the first stone. The granite itself originated from quarries in Aswan, over 500 miles south, transported by unknown methods up the Nile, and then moved with impossible precision through the pyramid's narrow passages. The mathematics embedded in the pyramid's dimensions speak to knowledge that historians claim should not have existed in 25 and 80 BCE. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height equals pi to several decimal places, yet pi was not officially discovered by Greek mathematicians until 2 millennia later. The structure encodes the golden ratio, the speed of light in meters per second, and astronomical constants that modern science has only recently calculated. More mysterious still is the construction timeline. Mainstream archaeology suggests the pyramid was built in approximately 20 years, requiring the placement of one limestone block every 2 minutes, working 24 hours a day without rest. Each block would need to be quarried, shaped, transported, and positioned with architectural precision faster than modern cranes could achieve the same task. The logistics alone challenge everything we understand about ancient project management and workforce capabilities. The acoustic properties of the pyramid add another layer of impossibility. The internal chambers resonate at frequencies that correspond to the Earth's heartbeat, the Schumann resonance of 7.83 Hz. Sound tests reveal that certain chambers amplify specific frequencies while dampening others, suggesting the builders possessed advanced knowledge of acoustics and harmonic resonance. The granite chambers ring like bells when struck, producing pure tones that modern acousticians struggle to replicate in purpose-built structures. Beneath the pyramid, the bedrock bears tool marks that defy explanation. Perfect right angles carved into solid stone, surfaces polished to mirror flatness, and drilling holes that show spiral grooves indicating feed rates impossible to achieve with bronze or copper tools. The evidence suggests cutting speeds and drilling capabilities that require industrial diamond bits and high-speed machinery. Yet these marks were made when humanity supposedly worked only with hand tools and muscle power. The water erosion patterns on the Sphinx nearby suggest an antiquity far greater than orthodox archaeology allows. Rain damage on the monument indicates construction during a period when the Giza Plateau experienced regular rainfall, a climate condition that ended around 10,000 BCE. If the Sphinx predates the pyramid by millennia, it challenges the entire timeline of human technological development and suggests the pyramid builders inherited knowledge from an even more ancient civilization. Temperature readings within the pyramid reveal anomalies that modern science cannot explain. The internal temperature remains constant at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of external weather conditions. This natural air conditioning system maintains perfect climate control without any visible mechanical systems, suggesting an understanding of thermodynamics and airflow that predates such knowledge by thousands of years. On Salisbury Plain, where morning mist clings to ancient grass and the wind carries whispers of forgotten ceremonies, Stonehenge rises from the earth like a question mark carved in stone. This circular temple, older than the Great Wall of China and the Colosseum, combined presents mysteries that grow deeper with each archaeological discovery. Its builders, working with antler picks and wooden levers, somehow created a monument that functions as both temple and computer, predicting eclipses and tracking celestial movements with accuracy that would not be achieved again until the invention of modern astronomical instruments. The massive trilithons, those horseshoe arrangements of standing stones capped with horizontal lintels, represent engineering achievements that challenge our understanding of Neolithic capabilities. The largest stones weigh 50 tons, transported from quarries 25 miles away across terrain that would challenge modern heavy machinery. Yet somehow, around 2500 BCE, ancient Britons moved these megalithic monuments using techniques that remain mysterious. The Sarsen stones were shaped and smoothed without metal tools. Their surfaces worked to precision using only stone hammers and wooden wedges. Yet they display tool marks suggesting cutting methods that archaeologists cannot explain. The precision of Stonehenge's construction rivals that of any modern building. The circle's geometry demonstrates advanced mathematical knowledge, with the monument's layout based on complex astronomical calculations. The heelstone aligns perfectly with the summer solstice sunrise, while other stone alignments mark the winter solstice, equinoxes, and the 18-year lunar cycle. The builders understood the precession of the equinoxes, a cosmic phenomenon that takes 26,000 years to complete, suggesting observations spanning multiple generations and record-keeping systems that have left no trace. The acoustic properties of Stonehenge reveal another layer of sophisticated design. The arrangement of stones creates a natural amphitheater that amplifies sound from the center while muffling external noise. Modern acoustic analysis shows that the monument's designers understood sound reflection and resonance, creating specific acoustic effects that would enhance ritual activities. Certain frequencies are amplified while others are dampened, suggesting the builders possessed knowledge of harmonic engineering that would not be formally understood until the scientific revolution. The socket holes for the missing stones show evidence of precise planning that extended over centuries. Archaeological excavation reveals that the monument underwent multiple phases of construction, each building upon earlier work with mathematical precision. The builders maintained exact alignments and measurements across generations, suggesting a continuity of knowledge and purpose that challenges assumptions about prehistoric societies' organizational capabilities. Radiocarbon dating reveals construction phases spanning over 1,500 years, yet the monument maintains geometric and astronomical accuracy throughout this extended building period. This suggests not random additions, but a master plan executed across dozens of generations, requiring sophisticated knowledge transfer and institutional memory that prehistoric societies supposedly lacked. The consistency of design across centuries implies written records or oral traditions of extraordinary accuracy and detail. The smaller bluestones present perhaps the greatest mystery. These 4-ton monuments originated from the Preseli Hills in Wales, 150 miles away across challenging terrain including rivers, forests, and mountains. Recent archaeological evidence suggests they were transported not by land but by sea, requiring maritime capabilities and navigational knowledge that historians have never attributed to Neolithic Britain. Alternative theories propose the stones were moved by glacial action, yet geological evidence shows no Ice Age activity in the area during the relevant time period. The joinery methods used at Stonehenge demonstrate carpentry techniques applied to stone, with mortise and tenon joints carved into multi-ton blocks. These precise connections, invisible from ground level, serve no structural purpose in stonework, suggesting the builders were adapting wooden construction techniques to megalithic architecture. The precision of these joints requires tools and techniques that leave no archaeological trace, creating another puzzle within the greater mystery. The monument's relationship to the landscape reveals planning on a vast scale. Stonehenge sits at the center of a complex landscape of barrows, earthworks, and other ancient monuments, all aligned according to astronomical principles. The entire Salisbury Plain appears to have been designed as a sacred landscape, with Stonehenge as its focal point. This suggests centralized planning and resource allocation on a scale that challenges every assumption about Neolithic society's organizational capabilities. Recent discoveries using ground-penetrating radar have revealed additional stone circles and structures buried beneath the plain, suggesting Stonehenge was part of a much larger complex. These hidden monuments maintain the same precise alignments and measurements as the visible stones, indicating a master plan of extraordinary scope and sophistication. The scale of this complex rivals the greatest architectural achievements of recorded history, yet it was created by a culture that supposedly lacked writing, mathematics, and centralized government. The energy properties of Stonehenge add another dimension to its mystery. Modern instruments detect electromagnetic anomalies within the circle, with heightened energy readings that correlate with astronomical events. These energy fluctuations suggest the monument may have been designed to harness or focus natural earth energies, a concept that predates our understanding of electromagnetic fields by thousands of years. The builders somehow selected a location with unique geological properties that enhance these energetic phenomena. High in the Andes, where the air grows thin and the ancient city of Cusco spreads below like a tapestry of red-tiled roofs, the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuamán rise from the mountain slopes with such precision that not even a knife blade can slip between the stones. This fortress, whose very name means satisfied falcon in the Quechua tongue, stands as perhaps the most impossible achievement in stone masonry ever attempted by human hands. Its builders worked with granite blocks weighing up to 200 tons, fitting them together in three-dimensional puzzles that modern engineers struggle to comprehend, let alone duplicate. The massive stones of Sacsayhuamán were not merely stacked, but interlocked in complex geometric patterns that distribute weight and stress with engineering sophistication that defies the conventional timeline of human technological development. Each block was cut and shaped to fit its neighbors with such precision that the joints remain earthquake-proof after more than 5 centuries of seismic activity. The Incas, who claimed they inherited these walls from even more ancient builders, possessed no iron tools, no wheeled vehicles, and no draft animals larger than llamas. Yet they created stonework that modern construction equipment cannot replicate. The granite blocks themselves present the first impossibility. The nearest quarry lies several miles away, across terrain that would challenge modern heavy machinery. These massive stones were somehow extracted from living rock, transported across valleys and up steep mountain slopes, then lifted into position with tolerances measured in fractions of inches. The tool marks on the stones suggest cutting methods that archaeologists cannot explain, with surfaces polished to near-mirror quality, using techniques that left no trace in the archaeological record. The three-dimensional fitting of the stones represents a geometric achievement that requires advanced mathematical knowledge and spatial reasoning. Each block interfaces with its neighbors in multiple planes simultaneously, creating joints that are tighter at the center than at the edges. This technique, known as keying, prevents the stones from sliding apart during seismic activity, effectively making the entire wall a single, massive, flexible unit. Modern engineering analysis reveals that this design actually becomes stronger during earthquakes, with the movement redistributing stress throughout the structure rather than concentrating it at weak points. The acoustic properties of Sacsayhuamán reveal another dimension of sophisticated design. The walls amplify and focus sound in ways that suggest the builders understood harmonic resonance and acoustic engineering. Certain sections of the wall produce specific musical tones when struck, while others amplify whispered conversations across remarkable distances. The acoustic effects are so precise that they appear intentional, suggesting the fortress served ceremonial as well as defensive purposes. The logistics of construction present puzzles that challenge every assumption about Inca society's organizational capabilities. Moving and positioning stones weighing hundreds of tons requires coordination between hundreds of workers, sophisticated lifting equipment, and engineering knowledge that supposedly did not exist in pre-Columbian America. Yet the archaeological record contains no evidence of the massive wooden cranes, rope systems, or earthen ramps that such construction would require. The builders somehow achieved these feats using methods that have left no trace. The precision of the stonework extends beyond mere fitting to include complex angular relationships that serve both structural and astronomical purposes. Certain walls align with celestial events, marking solstices and equinoxes with the same precision found at other megalithic sites worldwide. The builders incorporated astronomical knowledge into defensive architecture, creating a fortress that functioned as both military installation and cosmic observatory. Recent analysis using laser scanning technology has revealed that the stones were shaped with precision exceeding modern industrial standards. The surfaces deviate from perfect flatness by less than a millimeter across spans of several feet, a tolerance that requires measurement instruments more accurate than those possessed by the Incas. The consistency of this precision across thousands of stone suggests systematic methods and quality control that challenge assumptions about pre-industrial construction capabilities. The underground chambers and passages within Sacsayhuamán present their own mysteries. Tunnels carved through solid rock connect different sections of the fortress through a network that modern surveys have only partially mapped. These passages were excavated with the same impossible precision as the surface walls, with surfaces smoothed to near perfection using techniques that leave no tool marks. The tunnels serve no obvious military purpose, suggesting they were designed for functions that remain unknown. The water management systems integrated into Sacsayhuamán demonstrate hydraulic engineering that predates European knowledge of such techniques by centuries. Underground channels carved into bedrock carry water throughout the complex, with flow, rates and pressure calculations that require advanced understanding of fluid dynamics. These waterways remain functional after 5 centuries, testament to engineering knowledge that historical timelines suggest should not have existed in pre-Columbian Peru. The fortress shows evidence of construction phases spanning centuries, yet maintains geometric and architectural consistency throughout its extended building period. Like Stonehenge, this suggests institutional knowledge and planning capabilities that challenge assumptions about Inca society's organizational structure. The consistency of technique across generations implies training systems and knowledge transfer methods that have left no record in Inca oral tradition or Spanish chronicles. Perhaps most mysteriously, Spanish chroniclers reported that the fortress was still under construction when they arrived in the 1530s. Yet the Incas claimed they were merely maintaining walls built by earlier peoples. The Spanish described witnessing massive stones being moved into position using techniques they could not understand, methods that involved neither the European-style machinery nor the simple tools found in Inca archaeological sites. These eyewitness accounts describe construction methods that seem to involve some form of stone softening or manipulation that renders the granite temporarily malleable. The earthquake resistance of Sacsayhuamán has been tested repeatedly by seismic events that have destroyed modern buildings in Cusco while leaving the ancient walls untouched. The most recent major earthquake in 1950 toppled colonial churches and damaged modern structures throughout the region, yet the megalithic walls showed no signs of stress or displacement. Engineering analysis reveals that the flexible jointing system actually becomes more stable under seismic stress, a characteristic that modern earthquake engineering has only recently begun to understand and attempt to replicate. The integration of Sacsayhuamán with the broader landscape reveals planning on a scale that encompasses the entire Cusco Valley. The fortress aligns with astronomical phenomena visible from the site while maintaining sightlines to other Inca installations throughout the region. This suggests coordinated planning that extended across hundreds of square miles, requiring surveying capabilities and communication systems that challenge assumptions about Inca technological and administrative capabilities. On the windswept altiplano of Bolivia, where the air is so thin that every breath requires effort, and the silence stretches across horizons that seem to touch the edge of the world, lie the scattered remains of Puma Punku. Here, at 12,800 feet above sea level, ancient builders created stonework so precise that it appears machine-made, with tolerances and surface finishes that challenge our understanding of what is possible with hand tools. The massive blocks of red sandstone and andesite that litter this high plain bare cut marks and drilling patterns that suggest technologies that should not have existed when these monuments were carved. The stones of Puma Punku display machining, characteristics that modern stonemasons struggle to replicate even with industrial equipment. Surfaces are ground flat to within fractions of a millimeter. Edges are cut to perfect right angles, and drill holes are bored with such precision that they appear to have been created by diamond-tipped bits operating at high speed. The surface finishes on these ancient blocks exceed the quality standards of modern architectural stonework, yet they were created at a time when the Tiwanaku civilization supposedly possessed only bronze tools and human muscle power. The H-blocks, massive stone platforms that once supported unknown structures, demonstrate interlocking systems of extraordinary complexity. These blocks weigh between 130 and 180 tons, yet they are cut with channels, notches, and projections that fit together in three-dimensional patterns, requiring mathematical precision and spatial engineering beyond what should have been possible for the Tiwanaku culture. Each block interfaces with its neighbors through multiple contact points, creating connections that distribute stress and provide stability against seismic activity and the extreme temperature variations of the high altiplano. The transportation of these massive stones presents logistical challenges that dwarf those faced at other megalithic sites. The nearest quarry for the red sandstone lies 10 miles away, while the andesite originated from quarries 50 miles distant. Moving multi-hundred-ton blocks across the rolling terrain of the altiplano without wheeled vehicles or large draft animals, and then lifting them into precise position at 12,800 feet elevation, requires capabilities that archaeological evidence suggests the Tiwanaku did not possess. Yet the stones are there, positioned with precision that would challenge modern construction equipment. The cutting techniques evident on Puma Punku stones suggest methods that leave no trace in the archaeological record. The blocks show evidence of cuts that penetrate deep into the stone without the wedge marks, tool scratches, or stress fractures that would result from conventional stone cutting methods. Some surfaces appear to have been cut through the stone as if it were soft clay, then hardened to granite-like durability. These characteristics suggest either tools that have left no archaeological trace or techniques that modern science does not understand. The drilling patterns found throughout Puma Punku present perhaps the most compelling evidence of advanced technology. Holes are drilled with such precision that they maintain constant diameter from entry to exit, with walls that are perfectly smooth and parallel. The drilling rates indicated by spiral tool marks suggest cutting speeds that require industrial equipment, yet they were created in an environment where the highest technology was supposedly bronze implements. Core samples extracted from these holes show no evidence of the heat stress or tool marks that would result from conventional drilling methods. The astronomical alignments of Puma Punku reveal sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics, despite the site's extreme altitude and challenging environmental conditions. The remaining structures align with solstices, equinoxes, and other astronomical events with precision that requires long-term observation and mathematical calculation. The builders incorporated astronomical knowledge into architectural planning, creating a monument that functioned as both ceremonial center and cosmic observatory despite being constructed at an elevation where extended physical labor is extremely difficult. Recent analysis using ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry has revealed that Puma Punku was part of a much larger complex that extended across several square miles of the Altiplano. The buried structures maintain the same precise alignments and sophisticated construction techniques as the visible remains, suggesting coordinated planning and construction on a massive scale. This hidden complex challenges assumptions about the Tiwanaku civilization's size, organizational capabilities, and technological achievements. The acoustic properties of the remaining Puma Punku structures demonstrate advanced understanding of sound propagation and resonance. The stone platforms amplify certain frequencies while dampening others, creating acoustic effects that would enhance ceremonial activities. The precision of these acoustic characteristics suggests intentional design rather than accidental properties, indicating knowledge of harmonic engineering that predates formal understanding of such principles by centuries. Carbon dating of organic materials found in association with Puma Punku suggests construction dates that challenge the conventional timeline of Tiwanaku civilization. Some evidence points to building activity as early as 15,000 BCE, predating the supposed development of complex civilizations in the Americas by thousands of years. If these dates are accurate, Puma Punku represents one of the oldest architectural achievements in human history, created by a civilization that has left no other trace in the archaeological record. The preservation state of Puma Punku stones suggests they were abandoned relatively recently in geological terms. The lack of significant weathering, despite exposure to the extreme climate of the Altiplano for centuries or millennia, indicates either exceptional construction materials or environmental conditions that differ from what the site currently experiences. The stones show signs of catastrophic destruction rather than gradual decay, with massive blocks scattered as if by some tremendous force, rather than slowly weathered by time and climate. The metallurgical evidence from Puma Punku includes bronze, clamps and fasteners that demonstrate advanced alloying techniques and precision casting. These metal implements show no corrosion despite centuries of exposure to the harsh Altiplano climate, suggesting metallurgical knowledge that exceeds what historians attribute to the Tiwanaku culture. The precision of these metal components matches the stonework, indicating systematic quality control and manufacturing capabilities that challenge assumptions about pre-Columbian American technology. The integration of Puma Punku with Lake Titicaca reveals hydraulic engineering on a massive scale. Ancient channels and harbor installations suggest the site once sat on the shores of the lake, despite being several miles from the current shoreline. This implies either dramatic changes in the lake's water level or earth movements that have altered the local geography since the site's construction. The scale of these changes suggests either catastrophic geological events or climate variations that dwarf anything in recorded history. The mathematical relationships embedded in Puma Punku's layout encode numerical constants and geometric principles that would not be formally recognized until the development of modern mathematics. The proportions of the structures incorporate pi, the golden ratio, and other mathematical constants with precision that suggests advanced mathematical knowledge. These relationships appear intentional rather than accidental, indicating systematic application of mathematical principles to architectural design centuries before such knowledge was supposed to exist in the Americas. Precisely as the master craftsmen had envisioned them centuries before the rise of Rome itself. The precision of these joints, where massive stones meet in perfect harmony without the aid of mortar, speaks to a mathematical understanding that transcends the crude tools we imagine these ancient peoples possessed. The walls of Sacsayhuamán rise in 3 terraced levels, each one a testament to engineering prowess that modern architects study with reverence and bewilderment. The largest stones reach weights of over 200 tons, their surfaces polished to a mirror-like finish that reflects the Andean sky like obsidian pools. These monoliths were somehow transported from quarries miles away, across valleys and up steep mountain paths that would challenge even today's most sophisticated machinery. The Spanish conquistadors who first laid eyes upon these walls believed they were witnessing the work of demons, for surely no human hand could have shaped such perfect masonry. The indigenous people, when questioned about the origins of these walls, would speak in hushed tones of the time before time, when the children of the sun walked among mortals and shaped stone with their thoughts alone. These stories, dismissed by European minds as primitive superstition, carried within them echoes of construction techniques that remain enigmatic to this day. What strikes the modern observer most profoundly is not merely the size of these stones, but the intricate complexity of their fitting. Each block has been carved with dozens of faces, creating 3-dimensional puzzles where neighboring stones interlock in patterns so complex that removing a single piece would require the systematic dismantling of entire sections. This is not the work of brute force dragging crude blocks into approximate position. This is evidence of a sophisticated understanding of structural engineering, weight distribution, and seismic stability that rivals our own technological capabilities. The earthquakes that periodically shake the Andes, powerful enough to topple Spanish colonial churches and modern buildings alike, leave these ancient walls undisturbed. The stones move as one organism during seismic events, flexing and settling back into their original positions with the grace of living tissue. This earthquake-resistant design, achieved without concrete foundations or steel reinforcement, demonstrates a mastery of geological forces that modern engineers are only beginning to fully appreciate. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, where cedar-scented winds carry the whispers of ancient gods across weathered stones, stands one of archaeology's most perplexing enigmas. The temple complex of Baalbek, known to the Romans as Heliopolis, the city of the sun, rises from the Lebanese soil like a crystalline dream made manifest in limestone and granite. Yet beneath the graceful columns and ornate friezes of Roman construction lies something far older, far more mysterious, and infinitely more challenging to our understanding of ancient capabilities. The foundation of this sacred site, known as the Trilithon, consists of 3 colossal stone blocks that defy every conventional explanation of ancient engineering. Each of these monoliths measures approximately 65 feet in length, 14 feet in height, and 12 feet in depth, with estimated weights exceeding 800 tons. To put this in perspective, these individual stones are heavier than the largest blocks used in the Great Pyramid of Giza, yet they were somehow lifted to a height of 20 feet and positioned with such precision that a knife blade cannot be inserted between their joints. The quarry from which these giants were hewn lies nearly half a mile from the temple site, connected by terrain that slopes upward toward the construction area. The unfinished stone of the pregnant woman, still resting in this ancient quarry, weighs an estimated 1,000 tons and provides silent testimony to the ambitions of the builders. How workers with copper tools and wooden levers could have, separated such massive blocks from the living rock remains one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. The precision of the work at Baalbek extends beyond mere size to encompass geometric accuracies that would challenge modern construction teams. The foundation stones are cut and fitted with tolerances measured in millimeters, their surfaces polished to a smoothness that suggests the use of diamond-tipped tools or techniques entirely unknown to conventional archaeology. The drilling holes that perforate some blocks show a uniformity of depth and diameter that speaks to mechanical precision rather than handcrafted approximation. Local legends speak of a time when giants walked the earth and built the first temple as a landing place for the gods. These stories, preserved through generations of oral tradition, describe celestial beings who commanded the very stones to lift themselves into position. While modern minds might dismiss such tales as mythological fancy, they resonate with the practical impossibility of moving such massive weights using the technology supposedly available to ancient builders. The Roman additions to Baalbek, impressive though they are, pale in comparison to the megalithic foundation that supports them. The Temple of Jupiter, with its soaring columns and elaborate capitals, represents the pinnacle of Roman architectural achievement, yet it rests upon stones that the Romans themselves acknowledged they could neither move nor replicate. Roman engineers, masters of concrete and arch construction, capable of building aqueducts that spanned valleys and amphitheaters that held 50,000 spectators, left no written record of how the foundation stones were positioned. Modern attempts to explain the construction of Baalbek invariably resort to theoretical solutions involving massive earth ramps, countless workers, and centuries of patient labor. Yet the mathematical calculations required to move stones of such weight suggest that any ramp capable of supporting them would require more material than the entire temple complex itself. The logistics of feeding and housing the armies of workers supposedly required for such undertakings would have created archaeological evidence on a scale that simply does not exist. High on the Altiplano of Bolivia, where the air grows thin and the horizon stretches endlessly towards snow-capped peaks, lies a scatter of stones that challenges every assumption about the technological limitations of ancient civilizations. Puma Punku, meaning the door of the Puma in the local Aymara language, presents visitors with a puzzle carved in andesite and granite that has confounded archaeologists, engineers, and stoneworkers for over a century. At first glance, the site appears to be nothing more than a field of broken stones, the remnants of some ancient catastrophe that reduced a magnificent structure to rubble. Yet closer examination reveals details that transform confusion into wonder, and wonder into profound questions about the true capabilities of pre-Columbian civilization. These are not rough-hewn blocks split by primitive tools. They are precision-machined components of a construction system that incorporates tolerances and techniques that would be challenging even with modern equipment. The H-blocks of Puma Punku, massive stone elements weighing up to 130 tons each, display manufacturing precision that defies conventional explanations. Their surfaces are polished to mirror-like perfection, with angles cut to tolerances of less than 1 degree of variation. Internal cavities within these blocks show evidence of drilling techniques that produce perfectly round holes with smooth parallel walls extending deep into the stone matrix. The tool marks visible under microscopic examination suggest cutting speeds and material removal rates consistent with diamond-tipped rotary tools rather than copper chisels and stone hammers. What makes Puma Punku particularly enigmatic is the apparent standardization of its components. Many of the scattered blocks show evidence of having been part of a modular construction system. with standardized measurements and interlocking features that suggest mass production techniques. The precision of these standardized elements implies not only advanced tool technology, but also sophisticated quality control systems and mathematical planning that rivals modern prefabrication methods. The andesite from which these blocks were carved is among the hardest stone materials used in ancient construction, ranking close to granite on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. Working such stone with copper tools would be not merely difficult, but practically impossible, requiring the removal of thousands of tons of stone chips to achieve the smooth, polished surfaces and precise angles observed at the site. The time required for such work, using only the tools acknowledged by conventional archaeology, would stretch into multiple centuries for a relatively small structure. The transportation mystery at Puma Punku rivals that of any megalithic site. The nearest quarry for the andesite lies over 60 miles away, across terrain that includes rivers, marshes, and steep mountainous passes. Moving multi-ton blocks across such landscape using only human labor, llamas, and simple tools would require engineering solutions that leave no archaeological trace. Despite the massive infrastructure such efforts would necessitate, local Aymara traditions speak of Puma Punku as the place where the world was created, where the first man and woman were formed from clay by Viracocha, the creator god. These creation myths describe a time when the stones moved of their own accord, assembling themselves into perfect structures under the direction of divine architects. The myths speak of a great flood that destroyed the original world, leaving only scattered traces of the perfection that once existed. The acoustic properties of the Puma Punku stones add another layer of mystery to their construction. Many of the blocks, when struck with a hammer, produce clear, bell-like tones that resonate across the entire site. This musical quality suggests that the blocks were tuned to specific frequencies, implying an understanding of harmonic mathematics and acoustic engineering that extends far beyond the mere structural requirements of building construction. In the jungles of Cambodia, where morning mist rises from ancient moats like the breath of sleeping gods, stands a monument that serves simultaneously as architectural masterpiece, astronomical calendar, and three-dimensional map of the Hindu cosmos. Angkor Wat, built in the early 12th century during the reign of King Sacsayhuamán VII, represents perhaps the most sophisticated integration of spiritual symbolism and mathematical precision ever achieved in stone. The temple complex covers an area of over 400 acres, yet every measurement, every angle, every proportional relationship has been calculated to reflect the sacred mathematics of Hindu cosmology. The central tower represents Mount Meru, the cosmic mountain at the center of the universe, while the surrounding galleries and courtyards map the continents and oceans of the mythical world. This is not merely metaphorical representation. The measurements of the temple correspond exactly to the cosmic distances described in ancient Sanskrit texts, scaled down by a factor that maintains perfect proportional relationships. The astronomical alignments built into Angkor Wat demonstrate a level of mathematical sophistication that rivals modern astronomical calculation. The temple is oriented precisely to capture the spring equinox sunrise over its central tower. But this is merely the most obvious of dozens of celestial alignments incorporated into its design. The lengths of the galleries correspond to the great cosmic cycles described in Hindu astronomy, with measurements that precisely reflect the duration of the four great ages of time, the yugas, scaled to match the temple's physical dimensions. The the construction techniques employed at Angkor. What reveal engineering solutions that seem almost impossibly ambitious for the 12th century. The temple was built without mortar, using a technique of precision stone cutting and interlocking joints that creates structures capable of withstanding both seismic activity and the tremendous weight loads of the towering stone spires. The famous Apsara reliefs, celestial dancers carved into every available surface, display a uniformity of style and execution that suggests the work of master craftsmen operating under the most stringent quality control systems. The logistics of Angkor Wat's construction stagger the imagination. Conservative estimates suggest that the temple required over 300,000 tons of sandstone blocks, each one quarried from sites over 25 miles away and transported through dense jungle terrain. The workforce required for such an undertaking would have numbered in the tens of thousands, requiring the coordination of quarrying operations, transportation systems, food supplies, and accommodation on a scale that transforms the construction of Angkor Wat into one of history's most ambitious infrastructure projects. The hydraulic engineering associated with Angkor Wat extends far beyond the decorative moats that surround the temple complex. The entire Angkor region was transformed into a sophisticated water management system that included reservoirs, canals, and irrigation networks spanning hundreds of square miles. This hydraulic civilization represents one of the most advanced water management systems ever created, capable of supporting urban populations that may have exceeded 1 million inhabitants at the height of the Khmer Empire. The mathematical precision of Angkor Wat extends to details that would be invisible to casual observation, but reveal themselves to careful measurement. The ratios between different architectural elements consistently reflect the golden section and other mathematical constants that create natural harmony and aesthetic perfection. These proportional relationships appear not only in the major architectural elements, but also in the smallest decorative details, suggesting a comprehensive understanding of mathematical principles that governed every aspect of the temple's design. The acoustic engineering of Angkor Wat adds yet another dimension to its architectural sophistication. The galleries are designed to amplify and modulate sound in ways that enhance the chanting of Sanskrit prayers and the performance of classical Khmer music. Specific chambers within the complex produce distinct acoustic effects, from perfect echo chambers to spaces that seem to absorb sound entirely, creating zones of profound silence within the larger architectural composition. Modern conservation efforts at Angkor Wat have revealed construction techniques that continue to puzzle archaeologists and engineers. Some of the larger sandstone blocks show evidence of having been shaped using techniques that produce surface finishes and dimensional accuracies typically associated with machine tool operations. The joints between blocks achieve tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, creating structures so precisely fitted that they have remained stable for over 8 centuries despite the challenges of tropical climate, seismic activity, and the constant pressure of massive tree roots. In the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the nearest populated land, a small triangle of volcanic rock supports one of archaeology's most haunting mysteries. Easter Island, known to its Polynesian inhabitants as Rapa Nui, presents visitors with a landscape dominated by nearly 900 massive stone statues that gaze with empty sockets across windswept grasslands toward horizons that stretch unbroken to distant continents. The Moai of Easter Island challenge our understanding not merely through their number and size, but through the sophisticated engineering solutions required for their creation and placement. The largest completed statue, known as Paro, stands over 32 feet tall and weighs an estimated 82 tons. Yet this giant was somehow transported over 6 miles from the quarry at Rano Raraku to its final position on a ceremonial platform near the coast. The logistics of this transportation across terrain that includes steep slopes, marshy areas, and rocky outcroppings, using only the resources available on an isolated Pacific island, present engineering challenges that have never been satisfactorily resolved. The quarry itself tells a story of ambition that exceeds the apparent resources of the island's ancient population. Nearly 400 Moai remain at Rano Raraku in various stages of completion. From rough outlines, barely begun in the volcanic tuff, to finished statues that await only transportation to their final destinations. The unfinished statues provide insight into construction techniques that required sophisticated understanding of stone carving, structural engineering, and project management on a scale that seems incompatible with the limited population and resources of a remote Pacific island. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed that many of the Moai at Rano Raraku are not merely heads protruding from accumulated soil, but complete figures buried to their shoulders by centuries of sediment deposition. These buried statues, some reaching heights of over 40 feet when fully excavated, display intricate carvings on their torsos, including representations of loincloths, tattoos, and ceremonial accessories that demonstrate artistic sophistication, far beyond the crude stone heads that dominated earlier archaeological interpretations. The engineering challenges of Moai construction extend beyond carving to encompass the precision required for their placement on ceremonial platforms called ahu. These stone platforms, constructed from massive basalt blocks fitted together without mortar, display construction techniques that parallel the precision megalithic work found at sites like Sacsayhuamán and Baalbek. The largest ahu Tongariki, supports 15 Moai, weighing a combined total of over 300 tons. Yet the platform shows no signs of settling or structural failure after centuries of exposure to Pacific storms and seismic activity. Fournisseurs, transportation methods used to move completed Moai from quarry to final installation sites, continue to generate fierce debate among archaeologists and engineers. Traditional theories involving wooden rollers and massive rope systems require quantities of timber that would have exceeded the island's forest resources, while alternative theories, suggesting that the statues were walked upright using coordinated rope systems, face criticism regarding the practical feasibility of such techniques across the island's challenging terrain. The cultural mysteries surrounding the Moai extend beyond their construction to encompass questions about the motivation and organization required for such massive undertakings. The Easter Island population at the time of European contact numbered only a few thousand individuals, yet the island's archaeological record suggests construction activity that would have required the coordinated efforts of much larger populations working over extended periods. The social organization necessary to support such projects implies sophisticated governance systems and resource management capabilities that seem inconsistent with the simple Polynesian society described by early European visitors. The astronomical alignments of Easter Island's monuments add another layer of sophistication to their design and placement. Many of the ahu are oriented to capture specific celestial events, including solstices, equinoxes, and the rising and setting points of prominent star groups. These alignments demonstrate astronomical knowledge that extends far beyond basic navigation requirements, suggesting cultural traditions that incorporated sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics into religious and ceremonial practices. Tools found at Easter Island archaeological sites present additional puzzles regarding construction techniques. The basalt picks and obsidian blades traditionally associated with Moai carving seem inadequate for the precision and scale of work evidenced in the finished statues. Some researchers have suggested that harder tool materials, possibly including meteoric iron or other exotic substances, may have been available to ancient carvers, though no direct evidence of such materials has been conclusively identified in the archaeological record. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island, one of only a handful of independent writing systems developed in Polynesia, may contain encoded information about construction techniques and cultural practices associated with Moai creation. However, the script remains largely undeciphered, with only fragmentary translations available for the few surviving examples of this unique writing system. The loss of literacy following European contact and the devastating population decline caused by slave raids and disease means that much of the cultural knowledge associated with Moai construction may be permanently lost to history. Recent experimental archaeology projects have attempted to reconstruct ancient construction and transportation techniques using only materials and methods available to prehistoric Easter Island populations. While these experiments have demonstrated the theoretical possibility of Moai construction using traditional methods, they have also highlighted the enormous investment of time, labor, and resources such projects would have required. The scale of organization and sustained effort implied by the archaeological evidence continues to challenge our understanding of prehistoric Polynesian society and its capabilities. The environmental impact of Moai construction may have contributed to the ecological collapse that apparently affected Easter Island in prehistoric times. The massive deforestation required to provide timber for construction projects, combined with soil erosion and resource depletion associated with supporting large populations engaged in monument building, may have created feedback loops that ultimately made continued construction impossible. This environmental interpretation adds a cautionary dimension to the Moai mystery, suggesting that even the most impressive architectural achievements may carry hidden costs that eventually limit their creators' ability to sustain such ambitious projects. As the Pacific waves continue their eternal rhythm against Easter Island's rocky shores, the Moai maintain their silent vigil over landscapes that have witnessed both triumph and tragedy. Their weathered faces, carved with expressions that seem to embody both wisdom and sorrow, serve as reminders of human ambition capable of achieving the seemingly impossible, yet vulnerable to forces beyond the control of even the most accomplished builders. The mystery of their creation remains as profound today as it was to the first European visitors, who struggled to comprehend how such monuments could exist in one of the world's most isolated locations. Through techniques that seem to mock the very foundations of what modern engineering claims possible, the precision of these joints, the mathematical perfection of their alignments, speaks of a knowledge that transcends the simple tools archaeologists have found scattered in the dust of millennia. While the world marveled at the impossible megalithic constructions of distant lands, Rome was quietly revolutionizing the very essence of architectural possibility through methods that would remain unmatched for over 1,000 years. The secret lay not in the grandeur of individual stones, but in the alchemical transformation of humble materials into structures of impossible durability and grace. In the misty dawn hours when the Tiber reflected the first light of empire, Roman, engineers discovered something that modern science still struggles to fully comprehend: the creation of a concrete so advanced, so perfectly formulated, that it would grow stronger with age rather than weaker. This was not mere construction material, but a living substance that seemed to understand the passage of time itself. The formula for this miraculous concrete was deceptively simple in its components, yet impossibly complex in its execution. Volcanic ash from the Bay of Naples, combined with lime and seawater, created a chemical reaction that modern material scientists can observe but struggle to replicate with the same perfection. The Romans had discovered, perhaps by accident or perhaps through systematic experimentation, that speaks to a sophisticated understanding of chemistry, that certain volcanic minerals could create a hydraulic cement that would actually strengthen when exposed to seawater. This discovery allowed them to build structures that defied every conventional understanding of what was architecturally possible. The Pantheon in Rome stands today as perhaps the most perfect expression of this impossible engineering. Its dome, spanning 143 feet without a single supporting column, represents a feat of engineering that would not be attempted again until the Renaissance, nearly 14 centuries later. Yet the true mystery lies not in the span of the dome, impressive though it may be, but in its construction. The Romans built this architectural impossibility using a technique that modern engineers have only recently begun to understand. They varied the density of their concrete from the foundation to the crown of the dome, creating a structure that was heaviest at its base and lightest at its peak, allowing the building to support its own weight through principles of physics that would not be formally understood until the development of modern structural engineering. The base of the dome contains dense concrete mixed with travertine and tuff, materials chosen not only for their strength but for their specific weight characteristics. As the construction rose higher, the engineers gradually replaced these heavy aggregates with lighter volcanic pumice, creating a dome that essentially floated on its own architectural intelligence. At the very crown, where the famous oculus opens to the sky, the concrete is so light and perfectly balanced that it seems to defy gravity itself. But the Pantheon represents only one expression of Roman architectural impossibility. Throughout their empire, these master builders created structures that continue to confound modern understanding. The aqueducts that carried water across impossible distances, maintaining gradients so precise that the flow was perfectly controlled across hundreds of miles, demonstrate an understanding of hydraulic engineering that rivals anything achieved in the modern world. The Pont du Gard in southern France exemplifies this mastery of water engineering. Built without mortar, this three-tiered aqueduct bridge spans the Garden River, using stones fitted with such precision that the structure has survived for 2 millennia without significant maintenance. The gradient of the water channel is so perfectly calculated that over its entire 30-mile length, it drops only 56 feet, maintaining a flow rate that supplied the city of Nimes with millions of gallons of fresh water daily. Yet perhaps the most mysterious aspect of Roman engineering lies in their understanding of acoustics and architectural psychology. The great amphitheatres scattered throughout their empire were designed with acoustic properties that allowed a whisper on the stage to be heard clearly in the highest seats. This was not achieved through trial and error, but through a sophisticated understanding of sound wave behavior that modern acoustic engineers study with admiration and bewilderment. The Colosseum itself represents the pinnacle of this acoustic engineering. Despite its enormous size, capable of holding over 50,000 spectators, the arena was designed so that every seat had perfect sight lines and optimal acoustic properties. The engineering required for this achievement goes far beyond simple geometry. The Romans understood how sound travels through different materials, how the shape of surfaces affects acoustic reflection, and how the human ear perceives sound in large spaces. They achieved these acoustic miracles through techniques that seem impossibly advanced for their time. Clay vessels were embedded in the walls at specific intervals and angles, creating resonance chambers that amplified and clarified sound. The mathematics required to calculate the precise placement of these acoustic elements suggests a level of scientific understanding that contradicts conventional historical narratives about ancient technological capabilities. As Roman engineers were mastering the secrets of concrete and acoustics, on the other side of the world, ancient builders were achieving architectural impossibilities that seemed to emerge from an entirely different understanding of physics and construction. The temples and monuments of Asia reveal construction techniques so advanced, so precisely executed, that they challenge every assumption about the capabilities of ancient civilizations. In the misty mountains of Tibet, the Potala Palace rises, like a vision from another world, its walls seeming to grow organically from the living rock of the mountainside. Built at an altitude where modern construction faces enormous challenges, this architectural marvel was created using techniques that allowed massive stone blocks to be transported and precisely placed at elevations that test human endurance and engineering capability. The palace walls, some reaching heights of over 400 feet, were constructed using a technique called rammed earth construction that has never been fully understood or successfully replicated. Layers of earth, stone, and organic materials were compressed using methods that created walls stronger than modern concrete, yet flexible enough to withstand the constant seismic activity of the Himalayan region. What makes this construction truly impossible by conventional understanding is the precision with which these materials were measured and mixed. Chemical analysis of the walls reveals a composition so perfectly balanced that the structure has remained stable for over 13 centuries, enduring earthquakes, extreme temperature variations, and the constant pressure of its own enormous weight. The builders achieved this stability without modern surveying instruments, concrete additives, or steel reinforcement. But perhaps even more mysterious are the temple complexes of Angkor in Cambodia, where ancient builders created architectural monuments that continue to baffle modern engineers and archaeologists. Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world, represents an achievement in both engineering and artistic vision that seems to transcend the technological capabilities of the 12th century. The temple complex covers an area of over 400 acres, yet every element is positioned with astronomical precision that demonstrates an understanding of celestial mechanics that rivals modern astronomy. The central towers align perfectly with the spring equinox. The causeway corresponds to the precession of the equinoxes, and the entire layout mirrors the constellation Draco as it appeared in the sky during the temple's construction period. This astronomical precision required calculations of extraordinary complexity, performed without telescopes, computers, or modern mathematical notation. The builders somehow calculated the exact positions of celestial bodies not just for their own time, but for the slow precession cycle that takes over 25,000 years to complete. This suggests an understanding of astronomy so advanced that it challenges conventional timelines of human scientific development. The construction techniques used at Angkor are equally mysterious. The massive sandstone blocks, some weighing several tons, were transported from quarries located over 20 miles away without wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden. Archaeological evidence suggests the stones were moved using an elaborate system of canals and waterways, but the engineering required to float and maneuver such massive blocks with precision speaks to hydraulic engineering capabilities that seem impossible for the time period. Even more puzzling is the precision with which these blocks were cut and fitted. Modern analysis reveals that the joints between stones are so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. Yet no evidence exists of the tools or techniques that could have achieved such precision. The surfaces of the stones show no tool marks that correspond to any known ancient cutting implements, suggesting methods of stone shaping that remain completely mysterious. The decorative carvings that cover virtually every surface of Angkor Wat represent another impossible achievement. The level of detail, artistic consistency, and technical precision required to carve thousands of intricate relief panels covering hundreds of thousands of square feet would challenge modern artisans with power tools and computer-aided design. Yet these ancient craftsmen achieved this artistic miracle using techniques that left no archaeological trace of their methods. In India, the rock-cut temples of Ellora present perhaps the most impossible architectural achievement in human history. Carved directly from solid basalt rock, these temples were created not by building up from a foundation, but by cutting down into living stone, removing millions of tons of rock to create elaborate architectural spaces that exist entirely below the original ground level. The Kailasa temple at Ellora represents the pinnacle of this impossible art. Carved from a single piece of rock, this temple complex is larger than the Parthenon in Greece, yet it was created entirely by subtraction rather than addition. The precision required to envision such a structure in 3 dimensions, then execute it by removing rock in exactly the right sequence and proportions, suggests a spatial intelligence and planning capability that defies comprehension. What makes the Kailasa temple truly impossible is the fact that any error in calculation or execution would have been irreversible. Unlike conventional construction, where mistakes can be corrected or modified, rock cutting allows no margin for error. Every cut must be perfect, every measurement exact, because there is no way to add material back once it has been removed. Yet the temple was executed with flawless precision, suggesting a level of planning and visualization that challenges our understanding of human cognitive capabilities. The tool marks visible in the rock reveal another mystery. The cutting patterns suggest the use of implements that could remove large quantities of hard basalt quickly and precisely, yet no tools have been found that match these cutting patterns. Some surfaces show signs of having been melted rather than cut, leading to speculation about advanced techniques that have been lost to history. Archaeological dating of these temples reveals another impossibility: the speed of construction. Conservative estimates suggest that the Kailasa temple should have required several centuries to complete using conventional rock-cutting techniques. Yet historical records indicate it was completed in a much shorter time frame, implying construction methods of impossible efficiency and speed. Across the vast Pacific, in the high mountains of South America, ancient builders were achieving architectural impossibilities that continue to confound modern engineering. The precisely fitted stone walls of Sacsayhuamán above Cusco, Peru, represent a construction technique so advanced that it has never been successfully replicated, despite centuries of study and experimentation. These walls, built with stones, weighing up to 200 tons, are fitted together with such precision that the joints remain earthquake-proof after more than 5 centuries. The largest stones in these walls are so massive that modern cranes would struggle to position them, yet they were somehow lifted, transported, and fitted with mathematical precision that defies conventional understanding of ancient capabilities. What makes these walls truly impossible is not just their size, but their irregular, interlocking shapes. Each stone is unique, cut to fit perfectly with its neighbors in a 3-dimensional puzzle of impossible complexity. The precision required to calculate these irregular shapes, then execute them in stones of enormous weight and hardness, suggests construction techniques that remain completely mysterious. Modern attempts to understand these construction methods have yielded more questions than answers. The surfaces of the stones show no tool marks from conventional cutting implements. Some show evidence of having been shaped while in a plastic state, as if the hard granite and andesite had somehow been made malleable during construction. This has led to speculation about lost technologies involving sound waves, chemical softening agents, or other techniques that have no parallel in known historical records. The precision of the jointing is so extraordinary that it has inspired legends about the stones being shaped by supernatural forces. In reality, the achievement represents human ingenuity of the highest order, but expressed through techniques that challenge every assumption about ancient technological capabilities. The builders somehow overcame problems that modern engineers approach with computer modeling, precision machinery, and advanced materials science. Perhaps equally mysterious are the transportation methods used to move these enormous stones from quarries located many miles away, often across rugged mountain terrain. The logistics of moving stones weighing hundreds of tons over such distances, then lifting them to precise positions in multi-story walls, represents an engineering challenge that would test modern construction capabilities. Some of the largest stones show evidence of having been quarried from sites over 60 miles away, requiring transportation across valleys, rivers, and mountain passes that would challenge modern heavy equipment. Yet, archaeological evidence suggests these ancient builders accomplished this feat using techniques that left no trace of ramps, roads, or mechanical devices that would be necessary for conventional transportation methods. The civilization that created these architectural impossibilities vanished without leaving written records of their techniques, taking their construction secrets with them into the silence of history. What remains are the stones themselves, standing as mute testimony to human capabilities that transcended the supposed limitations of their time and tools. Further south, the megalithic structures of Tiwanaku near Lake Titicaca present another impossible achievement in ancient construction. Built at an altitude of over 12,000 feet, where the thin air makes physical labor extremely difficult, these monuments demonstrate construction techniques that seem to mock the challenges of high-altitude building. The gateway of the sun at Tiwanaku is carved from a single block of andesite weighing approximately 10 tons. Yet it is decorated with intricate relief carvings of such precision that they appear to have been machined rather than hand-carved. The calendar symbolism embedded in these carvings demonstrates astronomical knowledge of extraordinary sophistication, including accurate calculations of planetary cycles and celestial mechanics. The platform pyramids at Tiwanaku are constructed with stone blocks fitted so precisely that they have remained stable despite centuries of seismic activity in this geologically active region. The engineering required to achieve this stability at such an altitude, using construction techniques that left no archaeological evidence of their methods, represents another impossible achievement that challenges conventional understanding of ancient capabilities. What makes Tiwanaku particularly mysterious is its location at an altitude where, according to geological evidence, the climate was very different when the structures were built. This suggests either that the monuments are much older than conventional dating indicates, or that the builders possessed environmental adaptation capabilities that allowed them to work effectively under conditions that would challenge modern construction crews. The precision manufacturing evident in Tiwanaku's stonework extends to details that serve no apparent structural purpose, suggesting an aesthetic sensibility combined with technical capability that created beauty for its own sake. Corners are cut to perfect angles, surfaces polished to mirror-like finishes, and decorative elements executed with mechanical precision that speaks to manufacturing capabilities of extraordinary sophistication. These achievements become even more remarkable when considered in their geographical context. The isolation of these sites, their extreme altitude, and the logistical challenges of transporting materials and coordinating construction efforts in such environments represent obstacles that would test modern project management and construction techniques. Yet these ancient builders overcame every challenge while achieving standards of precision and durability that modern construction seldom matches. The legacy of these impossible achievements extends far beyond their immediate visual impact. They represent proof that human ingenuity and determination can transcend the apparent limitations of available technology and resources. The builders of these monuments found ways to achieve their architectural visions despite working with tools and techniques that conventional history suggests should have made their achievements impossible. As we contemplate these sleeping giants of stone, these architectural impossibilities that dot our planet like messages from a lost chapter of human capability, we begin to understand that the story of human achievement is far more complex and mysterious than our conventional histories suggest. These monuments stand not just as tourist destinations or archaeological curiosities, but as challenges to our understanding of what humans can accomplish when vision meets determination and knowledge transcends the limitations of its time. The stones themselves seem to whisper across the centuries, carrying secrets of construction techniques that allowed ordinary humans to achieve extraordinary results. They remind us that throughout history, human beings have found ways to overcome seemingly impossible challenges, creating lasting beauty and functional marvels that continue to inspire wonder thousands of years after their creation. Yet perhaps the most profound mystery these monuments present is not how they were built, but why their construction techniques were apparently lost, leaving humanity to rediscover over centuries and millennia the capabilities that these ancient builders took for granted. The silence that surrounds the disappearance of these techniques suggests discontinuities in human knowledge that challenge our assumptions about the steady march of technological progress through history. In the gentle rhythm of contemplating these ancient achievements, in the slow wonderment of minds drifting towards sleep, while pondering the impossible made manifest in stone, we find ourselves transported beyond the boundaries of conventional understanding into realms where human capability transcends the apparent limitations of time, tools, and technology. These monuments invite us to dream of human potential unlimited by the constraints that seem to define possibility in our own time. The story continues to unfold across continents and cultures, revealing a pattern of architectural achievement that speaks to capabilities woven into the very fabric of human consciousness, waiting perhaps for the right circumstances to manifest again in ways that will astonish future generations, just as these ancient achievements continue to astonish our own. The golden spirals hidden within the Parthenon's columns whispered secrets that Ictinus and Callicrates encoded in marble, their mathematical precision so profound that modern architects still struggle to replicate the optical illusions they achieved with nothing but geometric understanding and divine inspiration. Each column swelled slightly at its center, a technique called entasis, creating the illusion of perfect straightness when viewed from below, while the entire structure leaned inward by mere degrees, compensating for the eye's tendency to see parallel lines as diverging toward the sky. But the Greeks inherited these secrets from civilizations far older, builders who understood that stone could sing if properly tuned to the frequencies of the earth itself. The megalithic circles of Britain, erected when Athens was still a collection of mud huts, demonstrated an acoustic engineering so sophisticated that a whisper at the center of Stonehenge could be heard clearly at the outer ring, while sounds from outside the circle remained mysteriously muffled, as if the massive trilithons formed a barrier not just to wind and weather, but to the chaos of the mundane world beyond. These ancient acousticians knew that sound was not merely vibration through air, but energy that could be channeled, focused, and transformed through the careful arrangement of mass and space. The chambers within the Great Pyramid resonated at precisely 110 Hz, a frequency that modern neuroscience has discovered induces altered states of consciousness, while the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza was engineered so that a hand clap at its base would return as the cry of the Quetzal bird, the sacred creature whose feathers adorned the headdresses of Maya kings. In the high Andes, where the air grew thin and the gods seemed closer to earth, the architects of Sacsayhuamán arranged their massive stones with such precision that not even a knife blade could slip between the joints, despite each block weighing dozens of tons and bearing surfaces so irregular that modern engineers cannot fathom how they were fitted together. The Spanish conquistadors, accustomed to the finest masonry of Europe, declared that these walls must have been built by demons, for surely no human hand could achieve such impossible perfection. Yet the Inca inherited their techniques from the even more mysterious builders who came before, the same hands that carved the impossible angles of Puma Punku, where stone blocks were shaped with such geometric precision that they appear to have been machined rather than carved, their surfaces bearing no tool marks, their corners meeting at angles that vary by no more than fractions of degrees across structures that span hundreds of meters. The secret that united all these scattered monuments across continents and millennia was not merely technical skill, but a profound understanding of the hidden harmonies that governed both the movement of the heavens and the growth of living things. The same ratio that spiraled through the chambers of a nautilus shell and traced the arms of distant galaxies also determined the proportions of the Pyramid of Cheops, the spacing of the columns in the Temple of Artemis, and the placement of the massive heads on Easter Island. This divine proportion, known to the Greeks as the golden ratio, appeared wherever ancient builders sought to create structures that would resonate with the fundamental frequencies of creation itself. It was not enough for their temples and tombs to shelter the living or honor the dead. These buildings had to serve as bridges between the world of matter and the realm of pure mathematical truth, anchoring points where the abstract became tangible and the eternal touched the temporal. The builders of Angkor Wat understood this principle so deeply that they encoded the entire Hindu cosmology into their temple's proportions, creating a scale model of the universe itself in sandstone and laterite. The central tower represented Mount Meru, the cosmic axis around which all existence revolved, while the surrounding structures mapped the continents and oceans of the world, their relative distances calculated according to ancient texts that describe the geography of both the earthly realm and the celestial spheres beyond. Measuring nearly 2 kilometers across, Angkor Wat remains the largest religious monument ever constructed. Yet its vast scale never overwhelms the human spirit, but instead elevates it, drawing the eye and soul ever upward through a carefully orchestrated sequence of courtyards, galleries, and towers that function like a three-dimensional mandala, guiding pilgrims through the stages of spiritual awakening as they journey toward the central shrine. The Khmer engineers who raised these towers from the jungle floor possessed hydraulic knowledge that allowed them to control vast systems of canals and reservoirs, creating an artificial landscape that could support over 1 million inhabitants in a region that today struggles to sustain a fraction of that population. Their berets, or sacred pools, served not only as water storage, but as mirrors for the sky, reflecting the movement of stars and planets in ceremonies that synchronized earthly activities with cosmic cycles. These same principles guided the architects of Borobudur in neighboring Java, where Buddhist cosmology was rendered in volcanic stone through 9 terraced levels that represented the stages of enlightenment, each adorned with relief carvings that told the story of the Buddha's previous lives while simultaneously mapping the pilgrim's journey from desire through meditation to final liberation. The monument's 2,672 relief panels and 504 Buddha statues were positioned according to calculations so complex that scholars still debate their full meaning, though all agree that the structure functions as both temple and teaching aid, its very form conveying the Dharma to those wise enough to read the language of stone. The volcanic rock from which Borobudur was carved came from the same geological forces that shaped Mount Merapi, the sacred mountain whose eruptions both threatened and blessed the fertile plains below. The builders saw no contradiction between honoring the Buddha's peaceful teachings and acknowledging the violent power that created their landscape. Instead, they understood that destruction and creation were merely different aspects of the same eternal process, and their monuments sought to transcend the temporal while remaining grounded in the physical realities of their volcanic homeland. In the pre-dawn darkness of the winter solstice, when the year balanced on its deepest point of shadow, the ancient architects of Newgrange revealed their mastery over time itself as a single beam of sunlight penetrated the precisely aligned passage tomb, traveling 19 meters through carved stone to illuminate the inner chamber for exactly 17 minutes before withdrawing once more into the eternal darkness. This moment, orchestrated 5,000 years ago with an accuracy that modern satellite technology can barely improve upon, transformed mere burial mound into cosmic calendar, marking humanity's earliest victory over the seemingly random chaos of seasonal change. The builders of this Neolithic masterpiece, working 3 centuries before the first stones were raised at Stonehenge, possessed astronomical knowledge that would not be matched again until the Renaissance, calculating the precise angle and orientation needed to capture the solstice sun with mathematical precision that seems impossible for a culture supposedly armed with nothing but stone tools and primitive understanding. Yet their achievement stands as testimony to an intelligence that measured time not in days or seasons, but in the vast cycles that governed the dance between earth and star. This manipulation of light became the signature of sacred architecture across every continent where humans raised monuments to their gods and ancestors. The temples of Abu Simbel, carved from living rock by Ramesses II, were positioned so that twice each year, on the pharaoh's birthday and coronation day, the rising sun would penetrate the sanctuary to illuminate the statues of the gods within, while leaving the figure of Ptah, god of darkness, perpetually in shadow. When modern engineers moved these temples to save them from the rising waters of Lake Nasser, they managed to preserve this solar phenomenon with only a day's difference, a testament both to ancient precision and contemporary understanding. The Maya, perhaps the greatest astronomers of the ancient Americas, embedded similar light effects throughout their cities, creating buildings that served as enormous sundials and calendars, marking not only the daily passage of the sun, but the complex cycles of Venus, Mars, and the Moon. At Chichen Itza, the shadow of the Great Pyramid's step sides creates the illusion of a serpent descending the northern staircase during the spring and autumn equinoxes, its undulating form seeming to slither down the stone steps as the sun traces its path across the sky. This serpent shadow was no mere artistic flourish, but a profound statement about the relationship between cosmic order and earthly fertility. For Kukulkan, the feathered serpent whose descent the pyramid commemorated represented the life-giving rains that would soon follow the equinox, transforming the arid landscape of the Yucatan into the green abundance that sustained Maya civilization. The builders understood that their architecture must do more than simply mark time. It had to participate in the cosmic drama that brought life to their world. In the hidden valleys of Peru, the builders of Machu Picchu achieved an even more intimate relationship between architecture and astronomy, carving their royal estate into the living rock of the mountains so seamlessly that buildings seemed to grow from the earth itself. The Intihuatana stone, the hitching post of the sun, was sculpted to cast shadows that traced the sun's annual journey with such accuracy that Inca priests could predict the exact day of the solstices months in advance, while the Temple of the Sun was positioned to frame the constellation of the Southern Cross during the crucial planting season. These astronomical alignments served practical purposes in agricultural societies that lived or died by their ability to time planting and harvest correctly. But they also fulfilled deeper spiritual needs, connecting human communities to the vast cosmic order that governed all existence. By building their most sacred spaces in harmony with celestial movements, ancient architects created environments where worshippers could experience themselves as participants in cosmic drama rather than mere observers of it. The Great Library of Alexandria may have burned, and the scrolls of Herculaneum may have turned to carbon beneath Vesuvius's ash, but the true repositories of ancient knowledge were never made of papyrus or parchment, but of granite and limestone, marble and sandstone, materials that could preserve their secrets across millennia, even as empires rose and fell around them. These stone libraries recorded not words, but proportions, not stories, but structural relationships, encoding in their very geometry the mathematical and astronomical discoveries of civilizations whose names have been forgotten, but whose understanding lives on in every carefully calculated angle and precisely positioned block. The great cathedral builders of medieval Europe understood this principle when they raised their impossible towers toward heaven, creating structures that seemed to defy every law of physics while secretly obeying deeper principles of force and balance that their masons learned not from books, but from the stone itself. Notre Dame de Paris, Chartres Cathedral, and Westminster Abbey were all built according to geometric principles derived from ancient sources, their master builders carrying forward traditions that stretched back through Islamic architecture to the temple builders of Egypt and Mesopotamia. These Gothic cathedrals achieved heights that seemed impossible for their time, their walls pierced with such vast expanses of stained glass that they appeared more window than stone. Yet they stood for centuries without steel reinforcement or modern engineering calculations, relying instead on the perfect balance between thrust and counterthrust that their builders achieved through an intuitive understanding of structural forces that modern architects struggle to match even with computer modeling and advanced materials. The secret lay in the flying buttress, those elegant stone arcs that seemed purely decorative, but actually carried the enormous weight of the vaulted roofs outward and downward into massive foundations that anchored the entire structure to the earth below. This distribution of forces allowed the walls themselves to soar upward with minimal thickness, creating interior spaces of unprecedented height and lightness, while maintaining structural integrity through principles that would not be formally mathematized until centuries later. The builders of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople had achieved similar effects 1,000 years earlier, suspending their massive dome over a space so vast that entering pilgrims declared they had stepped into heaven itself. The dome appeared to float weightlessly above the central nave, though in reality it pressed down upon the building with thousands of tons of force, its weight distributed through a complex system of pendentives and buttresses that redirected the crushing pressure into the building's foundations through paths as elegant as they were invisible. This architectural alchemy, the transformation of overwhelming weight into apparent weightlessness, required not only technical skill, but a profound understanding of human psychology, for the true purpose of these sacred spaces was not merely to shelter worshippers, but to lift their spirits into realms of transcendence that could only be achieved through the careful manipulation of scale, proportion, and light. The builders knew that architecture was fundamentally a psychological art, one that could elevate or oppress, inspire or intimidate, depending on how skillfully its creators wielded the tools of space and form. In the hidden monasteries of Tibet, where Buddhism had taken root in one of the world's most challenging environments, architects developed techniques for building that seemed to ignore the basic realities of high-altitude construction. The Potala Palace in Lhasa, rising 13 stories above the valley floor at an elevation where most visitors struggle simply to breathe, was constructed using traditional methods that required no modern machinery, yet achieved structural stability that has endured through centuries of earthquakes and extreme weather. The palace's massive walls, built from local stone and compacted earth, taper inward as they rise, creating a pyramidal stability that distributes weight while reducing wind resistance at the exposed higher levels. The builders incorporated flexible wooden frames within the masonry walls, allowing the structure to bend slightly during seismic events rather than cracking catastrophically, a principle of earthquake-resistant design that modern engineers have only recently rediscovered and formalized. In the silence between the chisel strike and the echo's return, the master builders of antiquity listened for the voice of the stone itself, learning to read the mineral memory that recorded millions of years of geological history in crystalline structures invisible to the eye but perceptible to hands trained in the ancient arts. They understood that different stones possess different qualities, not merely of hardness or color, but of resonance, of energy, of spiritual potency. And they selected their materials with the same care that a musician chooses instruments for a symphony. The granite of the Egyptian pyramids came from quarries in Aswan, 600 miles south of Giza, transported on barges during the annual flood when the Nile rose high enough to carry vessels loaded with blocks weighing dozens of tons. But the builders chose this particular granite not merely for its durability, but for its unique crystalline structure, which contains high concentrations of quartz that give the stone piezoelectric properties, generating small electrical charges when subjected to pressure or vibration. Modern researchers have detected electromagnetic anomalies within the Great Pyramid that suggest its internal chambers may function as a kind of geological battery, accumulating and focusing the electrical charges generated by the massive weight of the structure itself. Whether the ancient builders understood these electrical properties explicitly or perceived them intuitively through their deep connection to natural materials remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing questions. But the effects are measurable and consistent, suggesting that the pyramid may have served functions far beyond those of a simple tomb. The limestone casing that once covered the pyramid's exterior was polished to mirror smoothness, creating a surface that reflected light with such intensity that the completed structure could be seen from the mountains of Israel, while its perfect mathematical proportions encoded relationships between the Earth's dimensions and the cosmic distances that separate our planet from the sun and moon. This was architecture as cosmology, stone arranged to mirror the fundamental structures of reality itself. Similar knowledge guided the builders of stone circles throughout the British Isles, who selected their materials from specific quarries, based on properties that modern geology has only recently begun to understand. The bluestones of Stonehenge were transported from Wales across hundreds of miles of difficult terrain, not because suitable stones were unavailable locally, but because these particular rocks possessed acoustic and magnetic properties that made them ideal for their intended purpose. When struck, these bluestones ring like bells, each producing a different tone based on its size and composition, suggesting that the completed circle may have functioned as an enormous lithophone, a stone instrument capable of producing complex musical effects. The magnetic properties of the stones also create subtle but measurable distortions in compass readings, indicating the presence of forces that the ancient builders may have perceived as spiritual energies, but which modern science recognizes as electromagnetic phenomena. The precision with which these circles were laid out required surveying skills that seem impossible for a supposedly primitive culture, yet the evidence is undeniable. Alignments accurate to within fractions of degrees, geometric relationships that encode complex mathematical constants, astronomical orientations calculated with such precision that they remain valid across millennia. The builders possessed instruments and techniques that archaeology has not yet recovered, leaving us to marvel at achievements we cannot fully explain. In the Americas, the architects of Teotihuacan demonstrated similar mastery over materials and mathematics, creating a city whose layout mirrored the arrangement of stars in the constellation Orion, while incorporating acoustic effects that seem almost supernatural to modern visitors. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent amplifies and distorts sound waves in ways that transform normal speech into the roaring voice of the wind god, while the Pyramid of the Sun is positioned to collect rainwater in underground cisterns through a drainage system so sophisticated that it continues to function 15 centuries after the city's abandonment. The builders of Teotihuacan also understood the psychological effects of architectural scale, designing their ceremonial avenue to create specific emotional responses in those who walked its length. The Avenue of the Dead stretches for more than 2 kilometers in a perfectly straight line, but its width and the height of its flanking pyramids are calculated to create an optical illusion that makes the far end appear impossibly distant, imbuing the journey with a sense of pilgrimage toward an unreachable goal. As the long twilight of the ancient world deepened and the last of the master builders laid down their tools, they left behind monuments that would speak across the centuries in languages more durable than bronze or gold, more permanent than any written word. These structures, scattered across every continent where humans had learned to shape stone to their will, shared a common purpose that transcended their diverse forms and functions. They were all attempts to create something that could outlast, not merely individual lives, but entire civilizations. Architectural statements of humanity's refusal to accept the limits of mortality. The great temples and tombs, pyramids and palaces, circles and chambers that crown the high places of the earth, all bear witness to the same fundamental human drive to create meaning from mere matter, to transform the raw stuff of geology into structures capable of containing and transmitting the deepest insights of their builders. They represent humanity's first and perhaps most successful attempt to encode knowledge in forms that could survive the collapse of the societies that created them, storing information in proportions and alignments, materials and methods that would remain accessible to any future civilization capable of reading the language of stone. In this sense, every ancient monument functions as a time capsule, preserving not artifacts, but understanding, not objects, but ideas embodied in three-dimensional form. The mathematical relationships built into the Pyramid of Cheops, the astronomical alignments of Stonehenge, the acoustic properties of Newgrange, and the structural innovations of Hagia Sophia all represent attempts to make knowledge immortal by writing it in the most permanent medium available to human hands. This impulse to create lasting monuments seems to arise naturally wherever human consciousness reaches a certain level of complexity, as if awareness of our own mortality inevitably generates the desire to create something that will outlast our individual existence. The cave painters of Lascaux and Altamira were perhaps the first to feel this urge, decorating the walls of their underground sanctuaries with images that have survived 40,000 years. But it was the architects of the ancient world who perfected the art of encoding meaning in enduring form. Their success is measured not merely in the physical survival of their monuments, though many have indeed endured for millennia with minimal maintenance, but in their continued ability to inspire wonder and provoke questions about the capabilities and motivations of their builders. Standing before the trilithons of Stonehenge or gazing up at the Corbel Dome of Newgrange, modern visitors experience something of the same awe that stirred the hearts of ancient pilgrims, proving that truly great architecture transcends the boundaries of time and culture to speak directly to the human spirit. This universality of response suggests that the master builders of antiquity understood something fundamental about human psychology and perception, creating structures that resonate with deep patterns embedded in consciousness itself. The golden ratio that appears in their proportions matches mathematical relationships found throughout the natural world, from the spiral of galaxies to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, while their acoustic effects exploit the same principles that govern music and speech, the fundamental waves and frequencies that organize human experience. Perhaps this is why ancient architecture continues to defy modern attempts at explanation. It was created by minds that thought in terms of harmony and resonance rather than mere function and efficiency. Architects who understood that buildings must satisfy the soul as well as the body, who recognized that true monumentality comes not from size alone, but from the ability to embody ideas so fundamental that they remain meaningful across centuries and cultures. The legacy of these ancient builders lives on not only in the monuments they left behind, but in the continuing human drive to create architecture that aspires to something greater than mere shelter. Every Gothic cathedral, every mosque dome, every modern skyscraper that reaches toward the sky carries forward the same impulse that moved the pyramid builders and megalith raisers, the eternal human desire to make the temporary permanent, to write our dreams in stone and steel for future generations to read and wonder at. In the end, the greatest mystery of ancient architecture may not be how it was built, but why it continues to move us so profoundly. Why these monuments retain their power to inspire even in an age that has sent humans to the moon and mapped the human genome. The answer perhaps lies in their creators' understanding that architecture is fundamentally about more than building. It is about encoding the deepest human aspirations in forms that can outlast any individual life, creating bridges between past and future that allow wisdom to flow across the centuries like water through carefully carved channels. As we stand in the shadows of these ancient achievements, humbled by their scale and sophisticated by their subtlety, we are reminded that the measure of a civilization lies not in its technological capabilities, but in its ability to create meaning that transcends the moment of its creation. The builders of antiquity possessed this ability in abundance, and their monuments remain as testaments to the enduring power of human imagination married to human skill, dream made manifest in the most permanent materials the earth could provide. Their silence speaks louder than any written word. Their shadows cast longer than any recorded history. Their mysteries deeper than any archaeologist's excavation can ever hope to fathom completely. And in this eternal dance between ambition and impossibility, we find the true genius of our ancestors, their refusal to accept the limitations that logic would impose upon their dreams. In the gathering twilight of our journey through these impossibilities made manifest, we come to understand that ancient architecture was never merely about shelter, nor even about monuments to power or faith. It was about something far more profound, the human soul's eternal conversation with eternity itself. Each stone placed was a word in this dialogue, each perfectly fitted joint a punctuation mark in humanity's attempt to write permanence into a world of constant change. The great pyramid builders of Giza knew this truth. As they labored under the desert sun, hoisting blocks that modern cranes strain to lift, they were not simply constructing tombs. They were crafting vessels for immortality, creating focal points where earthly precision could touch the infinite. The mathematical perfection embedded within those limestone walls, the precise alignment with cardinal directions, the incorporation of pi and phi in proportions that seem almost accidental yet are anything but, speaks to knowledge that transcends mere engineering. Modern archaeologists, armed with laser measuring devices and computer modeling software, continue to discover new layers of sophistication within these ancient works. The Great Pyramid's internal chambers resonate at frequencies that mirror the Earth's own harmonic signature. Its base perimeter, when divided by its height, yields pi to 15 decimal places, a mathematical constant that ancient peoples supposedly did not know. Yet there it stands, encoding cosmic relationships in solid stone, whispering secrets that our technology can detect but barely comprehend. Consider the strange case of the Pyramid of the Magician at Uxmal in the Yucatan Peninsula. This oval-based structure, unique among Mayan architecture, rises in 5 distinct levels, each built during different periods, yet forming a unified whole that defies conventional understanding of how such projects evolve. the Maya who built. It possessed no wheeled vehicles, no metal tools harder than copper, no domesticated beasts of burden. Yet they quarried, shaped, and transported millions of limestone blocks across difficult terrain, fitting them together with joints so precise that even today, after more than 1,000 years of earthquakes and hurricanes, business cards cannot slide between the stones. But the mystery deepens when we examine the structure's acoustic properties. Standing at the base of the pyramid and clapping sharply produces an echo that perfectly mimics the call of the sacred Quetzal bird. This is no accident of physics. The pyramid's steps were precisely calculated to create this effect, turning the entire structure into a massive acoustic instrument. How did pre-Columbian engineers, working without modern sound analysis tools, achieve such acoustic precision? The mathematics required would challenge even today's computational acoustics specialists. The temple complex at Angkor Wat presents another layer to this mystery of ancient precision. Built in the early 12th century by the Khmer Empire, this sprawling complex of over 400 acres was designed as a microcosm of the Hindu universe. Every measurement, from the width of causeways to the height of towers, corresponds to cosmic cycles described in ancient Sanskrit texts. The central tower's height of 65 meters precisely represents the axis of the Earth, while the distances between various structures mirror the orbital periods of planets. Yet the true marvel lies not in these symbolic correspondences, impressive though they are, but in the engineering that made them possible. The temple sits upon a vast network of underground channels and reservoirs that would be impressive by modern standards. During the monsoon season, excess water is channeled away through precisely graded tunnels. During dry periods, stored water is gradually released to maintain the moats and irrigation systems. This hydraulic system has functioned continuously for nearly 900 years, without pumps, without electricity, without any maintenance more sophisticated than occasional cleaning of debris. The stones themselves tell stories that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. Many of Angkor Wat's massive blocks show evidence of precision cutting that leaves modern stonemasons shaking their heads in wonder. Surfaces are perfectly flat to tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. Corners meet at exact 90-degree angles. Complex curves are so smooth they appear almost machined. All of this achieved with tools that supposedly consisted of nothing more sophisticated than bronze chisels and iron bars. Perhaps nowhere is the mystery of ancient precision more evident than in the megalithic structures that dot the landscape of Europe, South America, and beyond. These massive stone monuments, erected by cultures that left no written records, speak to us across millennia through the language of pure engineering. Their silence is more eloquent than any chronicle, their endurance more powerful than any decree. At Sacsayhuamán, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, 3 massive terraced walls stretch across the hillside like geological formations. Yet these are not natural rock outcroppings. They are precisely fitted assemblages of stones so large that some weigh over 300 tons. The largest stone, known as the Tired Stone, is estimated at more than 400 tons, larger than anything routinely moved by modern construction equipment. How it was quarried from bedrock, transported uphill for several miles, then lifted into position and fitted with millimeter precision against its neighbors, remains one of engineering's greatest unsolved puzzles. The Inca left no written language, no architectural plans, no technical manuals. Yet their stonework surpasses anything achieved by subsequent civilizations in the region. Each irregular block, some with as many as 12 faces, fits against its neighbors, with such precision that the joints between them are nearly invisible. No mortar binds these stones. They hold together through pure geometric perfection and gravitational lock. After 5 centuries of earthquakes, Spanish colonial destruction, and modern tourist traffic, the walls stand as solid as the day they were completed. Modern engineers attempting to understand these techniques have identified several impossibilities. The stones were clearly cut and shaped after being transported to the construction site. Evidence shows careful trimming and adjustment work. But how were such massive blocks lifted and manipulated for these final adjustments? The largest modern cranes cannot safely handle loads of this magnitude on the steep, irregular terrain where these walls were built. Some investigators have proposed elaborate ramp systems, but the logistics of moving 300-ton blocks up inclined planes would require ramps longer and more massive than the walls themselves. More puzzling still is the evidence that these massive blocks were somehow softened or rendered plastic during construction. The joints between stones show a flowing, almost melted quality, as if the rock had been malleable when put in place. Some stones appear to wrap around corners in ways that solid granite simply cannot. Local legends speak of a plant extract that could soften stone, making it moldable like clay before it hardened again into its final form. No such plant has been identified by modern botany, yet the physical evidence suggests some technique for temporarily altering the structural properties of solid rock. The mystery deepens when we examine similar precision stonework around the globe. At Ollantaytambo, another Inca site, massive granite blocks show identical flowing joints and impossible precision. At Puma Punku in Bolivia, andesite and granite blocks are cut with such accuracy that they could serve as precision instruments. Every angle is exact, every surface perfectly flat, every edge sharp enough to cut paper. These blocks, some weighing up to 400 tons, were transported from quarries more than 60 miles away, across mountainous terrain at altitudes where modern equipment struggles to function. The blocks at Puma Punku display another impossible feature: precision holes drilled completely through solid granite. These holes are perfectly circular, with walls so smooth and true that they appear to have been drilled with diamond-tipped equipment. The fact that they pass completely through blocks several feet thick suggests drilling techniques far beyond anything the Tiwanaku culture supposedly possessed. Some holes show evidence of having been drilled from both sides simultaneously, meeting in the middle with perfect alignment, a feat that would challenge modern drilling operations. Dr. Brian Furster, who has spent decades studying these sites, describes the precision as better than anything we can achieve today without diamond-tipped tools and computer-guided machinery. The surfaces of these ancient blocks, when measured with modern instruments, prove flatter than machined metal plates. The angles are more precise than those achieved in contemporary construction, yet orthodox archaeology maintains that these works were accomplished with copper tools and stone hammers by people who had not yet invented the wheel. In the heart of Easter Island, nearly 2,000 miles from the nearest populated land, stand nearly 900 stone figures that continue to perplex researchers more than 3 centuries after their discovery by European explorers. These Moai, as they are known to the Rapa Nui people, represent one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries, not merely because of their impressive craftsmanship, but because their very existence challenges our understanding of what isolated human populations can achieve. The conventional narrative suggests that Polynesian settlers, arriving sometime between 700 and 1100 CE, developed the sophisticated culture that created these monuments, using only stone tools and human labor. Yet the scale and precision of the work suggest capabilities that seem impossible given the island's limited resources and small population. The quarry site at Rano-Raraku, where most of the Moai were carved, contains nearly 400 statues in various stages of completion. Some were clearly abandoned mid-carving, their makers apparently vanishing before the work could be finished. Each Moai required months or years of skilled labor. The largest completed statue stands over 33 feet tall and weighs approximately 82 tons. Yet this giant pales beside some of the unfinished works that remain in the quarry. One incomplete Moai, if finished, would have stood nearly 70 feet tall, larger than a 6-story building. The engineering challenges of completing and transporting such a colossus would tax modern equipment, yet the carvers apparently began the work with confidence in their ability to complete it. The tools found at the quarry sites consist primarily of hand-sized basalt picks called toki. Modern experimental archaeology has demonstrated that these tools can indeed carve the volcanic tuff from which most Moai are made, but the process is extraordinarily slow and laborious. Estimates suggest that even a modest-sized Moai would require a team of skilled carvers working full-time for well over a year. The largest statues would have demanded several years of continuous effort. Yet the island's population, even at its peak, probably never exceeded 4,000 people. How could such a small society support the hundreds of full-time specialists required for this monumental undertaking? More puzzling still is the precision evident in the carving. Each Moai follows a remarkably consistent artistic template with proportions and features that vary only within narrow parameters. The backs of many statues display intricate petroglyphs, geometric patterns and symbols whose meanings remain unknown. These designs are carved with the same precision as the facial features, requiring steady hands and artistic vision that speaks to generations of specialized training. The transportation of completed Moai from quarry to final positions presents another layer of mystery. Recent excavations have revealed that many of the iconic statues, long thought to be just heads, actually have complete bodies buried beneath centuries of soil accumulation. Some of these buried bodies extend more than 20 feet underground, making the complete statues far larger and heavier than previously realized. The logistics of moving such massive sculptures across the island's rugged terrain would challenge modern transportation systems. Local legends speak of the Moai walking to their destinations under their own power, guided by spiritual forces, invoked through proper ceremonies. Western researchers long dismissed this as primitive superstition, but recent experiments have revealed a potential truth within the legend. By carefully coordinating ropes and human teams, researchers have successfully walked replica Moai in an upright position, rocking them forward in a controlled manner that does indeed resemble walking. This technique, if mastered by the original carvers, could explain how statues weighing many tons were moved without wheeled vehicles or large animals. Yet even this ingenious transportation method raises new questions. The precision required to walk a multi-ton statue across miles of uneven terrain without damaging it suggests a level of coordination and engineering sophistication that seems unlikely for an isolated island population. Moreover, many Moai were transported to platforms called ahu, where they were lifted into position and fitted with separate top knots carved from red scoria. These top knots, some weighing more than 10 tons, were quarried at Puna, several miles from most statue locations, then somehow hoisted onto statues that already stood 15 to 20 feet tall. The Ahu platforms themselves demonstrate construction techniques that rival anything achieved by other Polynesian cultures. The largest, Ahu Tongariki, stretches nearly 700 feet in length and supports 15 Moai. The platform is built of precisely fitted volcanic stones, some weighing several tons, arranged without mortar in patterns that have withstood centuries of Pacific storms and seismic activity. The engineering required to create stable foundations for such massive sculptures, while ensuring proper drainage and earthquake resistance, speaks to sophisticated understanding of construction principles. Deep within the Anatolian highlands of modern Turkey, at a site called Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists have uncovered what may be humanity's oldest temple complex, and perhaps its greatest architectural mystery. Dating to approximately 9600 BCE, this site predates Stonehenge by some 6,000 years, and the Egyptian pyramids by more than 4 millennia. It exists in a time when orthodox archaeology maintains that humans were still hunter-gatherers, lacking the social organization and technical skills necessary for monumental architecture. Yet the evidence at Göbekli Tepe tells a different story. The site consists of multiple circular enclosures, each containing massive stone pillars carved from solid limestone. These pillars, some standing over 15 feet tall and weighing up to 10 tons, are not crude megalithic monuments, but sophisticated sculptures displaying a level of artistry that would not be out of place in classical antiquity. Their surfaces are covered with intricate relief carvings depicting animals, geometric patterns, and mysterious symbols whose meanings remain undeciphered. The precision of the stonework at Göbekli Tepe rivals anything achieved by later civilizations. The pillars are perfectly cylindrical, their surfaces smooth and true. The relief carvings show remarkable detail. Every feather on carved birds, every scale on serpents, every muscle on wild boars. The artistic style is naturalistic and sophisticated, displaying knowledge of proportion and perspective that supposedly took millennia to develop. Yet here it appears, fully formed, at the very dawn of human civilization. The engineering challenges involved in creating Göbekli Tepe were formidable. The limestone pillars were quarried from bedrock using techniques that leave no tool marks visible to modern analysis. They were then transported uphill to the construction site and erected in precise circular arrangements. Some enclosures contain additional architectural elements, stone benches, carved portals, complex foundation systems, all executed with a sophistication that seems impossible for the supposed technological level of the builders. Perhaps most mysteriously, the site appears to have been deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, covered with tons of soil and rubble that preserved it until modern archaeological investigation. This burial was not the result of natural processes or abandonment. It was a careful, systematic covering that required enormous labor and planning. Why would a society invest decades or centuries in creating such magnificent structures only to bury them completely? The question haunts everyone who studies the site. The animals depicted in the carvings at Göbekli Tepe present another puzzle. The reliefs show creatures that were not native to the region during the site's period of active use. Lions, leopards, wild cattle, and other animals that had been extinct in Anatolia for thousands of years appear alongside local species. This suggests either that the carvings record much older traditions, passed down through oral history from earlier times, or that the builders had knowledge of distant lands and their fauna, knowledge that supposedly would not exist for thousands of years. Dr. Klaus Schmidt, who led the excavation of Göbekli Tepe until his death in 2014, described the site as a cathedral on a hill, a place where hunter-gatherer societies gathered for religious ceremonies that required unprecedented cooperation and planning. He estimated that the construction would have required hundreds of workers laboring for decades, supported by a complex supply network that could feed and house this workforce. Such organization implies social structures far more sophisticated than anything attributed to pre-agricultural societies. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed that the excavated areas represent only a small fraction of the complete site. Dozens of additional enclosures lie buried beneath the surrounding hills, some showing magnetic signatures that suggest even larger stone structures. If these prove to contain pillars and carvings similar to those already uncovered, Göbekli Tepe may be revealed as a vast complex covering many acres, a ceremonial center that served populations across wide regions of the ancient world. The implications of Göbekli Tepe extend far beyond archaeology into questions about the nature of human development itself. If hunter-gatherer societies possessed the organizational skills and technical knowledge to create such monuments, what other capabilities might they have had? The traditional narrative of human progress, from simple to complex, from crude to sophisticated, crumbles in the face of such evidence. Instead, we must consider the possibility that ancient peoples possessed knowledge and skills that were later lost, forgotten in the tumult of time and changing circumstances. In the shadow of the Himalayas, where ancient trade routes once carried silk and spices between east and west, stand monuments that challenge every assumption about the capabilities of pre-modern civilizations. The rock-cut architecture of India, spanning more than 2 millennia, represents perhaps the most ambitious and technically sophisticated stonework ever attempted by human hands. These are not buildings constructed from cut blocks, but entire temples, monasteries, and palaces carved directly from living rock, architectural sculpture on a scale that staggers the imagination. The cave temples at Ellora, dating from the 6th to 11th centuries CE, exemplify this impossible artistry. Here, 34 separate cave temples were carved from a single basalt cliff face, creating a religious complex that accommodates Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain traditions side by side. But it is the Kailasa temple, designated Cave 16, that truly defies comprehension. This structure, dedicated to Lord Shiva, was carved entirely from solid rock in a single continuous excavation that removed an estimated 400,000 tons of stone. To appreciate the magnitude of this achievement, consider that the Kailasa temple is not merely carved into the cliff, it is carved out of it. The builders began at the top of the cliff and worked downward, removing layer after layer of solid basalt to reveal the temple hidden within. The main structure stands over 100 feet tall, with a base measuring 276 by 154 feet. Every element, pillars, walls, statues, decorative panels, even the elephants that appear to support the structure, was carved from the original rock mass. The precision required for such an undertaking beggars belief. Unlike conventional construction, where mistakes can be corrected with new materials, rock cutting allows no margin for error. A single misplaced chisel stroke could ruin years of work. Yet the Kailasa temple displays flawless proportions and intricate detail throughout its vast expanse. The main tower, or shikhara, rises in perfectly calculated stages, each level adorned with sculptures and architectural elements that maintain consistent scale and style despite being carved by different hands across what must have been decades of continuous work. The engineering challenges involved in creating Kailasa would intimidate modern architects. The structure required precise planning of drainage systems to prevent water damage, careful calculation of load-bearing elements to ensure stability, and sophisticated understanding of rock mechanics to avoid catastrophic failure during excavation. All of this was achieved without modern surveying instruments, without computer modeling, without the safety nets that contemporary engineering takes for granted. Consider the sculpture galleries that surround the main temple. These long corridors, carved deep into the cliff face, contain hundreds of life-sized figures depicting scenes from Hindu mythology. Each figure displays individual character and expression, each drapery, fold, and ornamental detail carved with loving precision. The elephant sculptures that appear to support the temple are carved with such realism that every wrinkle and toenail is perfectly rendered. The technical skill required to achieve such artistry while working in the confined spaces of a partially excavated cliff face approaches the superhuman. At Ajanta, another Maharashtra site, 29 cave temples carved between the 2nd century BCE and 6th century CE demonstrate equally impossible precision in a different medium. Here, the challenges were not merely structural but artistic. The caves were designed as both monasteries and art galleries, their walls covered with painted frescoes that have survived 15 centuries, with colors still vivid and details still sharp. The technical achievements at Ajanta go beyond mere preservation. The cave walls were prepared with multiple layers of specially formulated plaster, each with different properties designed to create the ideal painting surface. The pigments used were derived from local minerals and plants, mixed with binding agents that have kept the colors stable through centuries of monsoons and temperature fluctuations. Some paintings display techniques, such as the use of perspective and chiaroscuro, that European art would not master for another 1,000 years. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of these painted caves is their planning. The frescoes are not random decorations, but carefully orchestrated visual programs that guide visitors through complex religious narratives. Each cave tells a complete story through its painted program, with scenes arranged to create specific emotional and spiritual effects. The lighting conditions inside the caves were carefully calculated so that oil lamps would illuminate certain panels at specific times, creating a dynamic visual experience that changed throughout the day. The logistics of creating such works in the confines of partially completed caves strain credibility. How were teams of artists coordinated in the cramped, poorly lit spaces? How were consistent artistic standards maintained across crews working simultaneously on different sections? How were the complex architectural and decorative elements planned so that everything would fit together perfectly when the excavation was complete? The absence of surviving plans or models suggests that master builders worked from memory and experience, carrying complete mental blueprints for structures of staggering complexity. As we draw our journey through these architectural impossibilities, to a gentle close, we find ourselves not with answers, but with something far more valuable. A profound sense of wonder at what human hands and hearts can achieve when motivated by vision that transcends the merely practical. These monuments, that defy our modern understanding, were never intended simply to shelter bodies or display wealth. They were attempts to make the eternal tangible, to create meeting places between the finite and infinite, to build bridges across the vast gulf that separates human aspiration from human limitation. In the quiet hours when tourist crowds have departed and the ancient stones stand alone with the stars, These structures reveal their deepest purpose. They are repositories of dreams made manifest, crystallizations of the human spirit's refusal to accept boundaries. Every impossibly precise joint speaks of patience beyond measure. Every massive block lifted without modern machinery whispers of cooperation that transcended individual limitation. Every carved detail that has survived millennia demonstrates the power of human hands guided by transcendent vision. The mystery of how these works were accomplished may never be fully solved, and perhaps that is as it should be. Their true power lies not in the mechanical details of their construction, but in their continued ability to inspire awe in every generation that encounters them. They remind us that our ancestors, working with tools we consider primitive, achieved results we struggle to match with all our technological sophistication. They suggest that human potential may be far greater than our current understanding allows, that capabilities we consider lost or legendary might simply be dormant, waiting for the proper conditions to reawaken. Standing before the Great Pyramid, as sunset paints its limestone faces gold, or walking among the Moai as Easter Island's eternal winds carry the songs of unknown generations, or feeling the cool darkness of Ajanta's painted caves wrap around you like ancient meditation, you understand that these structures were never meant to be understood in conventional terms. They were built by people who saw themselves as collaborators with cosmic forces, who worked not merely with stone and bronze, but with intention and devotion that transformed matter into meaning. The precision that modern engineers find so baffling may have emerged from states of consciousness we have forgotten how to access. Ancient texts speak of builders who entered altered states through ritual and meditation, who worked in harmony with natural cycles, who understood stone and metal not as dead matter but as participants in cosmic patterns. Perhaps the true tools of these ancient architects were not the chisels and levers archaeologists uncover, but qualities of attention and intention that allowed them to work with materials in ways that our mechanistic worldview cannot comprehend. This perspective does not diminish the remarkable technical achievements we have explored. It enriches them. It suggests that human beings at their fullest potential may be capable of feats that transcend the merely physical, that consciousness itself might be a technology more powerful than any machine. The ancient builders may have accessed states of awareness that allowed them to perceive solutions invisible to ordinary thinking, to coordinate vast projects through means that went beyond verbal communication, to maintain precision and vision across generations through ways of knowing we have yet to rediscover. As you prepare to let sleep carry you into your own mysterious realm of possibility, consider that these ancient achievements were created by human beings, not fundamentally different from ourselves. They possess the same basic physiology, the same capacity for learning and innovation, the same potential for transcending apparent limitations through vision and dedication. If they could move mountains and carve infinity into stone, what? Boundaries exist only in our assumptions about what is possible. The stones of Sacsayhuamán, fitted with impossible precision, remind us that perfection is achievable when we align ourselves with deeper patterns. The soaring towers of Angkor, mirroring cosmic cycles in their proportions, suggest that human creations can harmonize with universal principles. The buried wonders of Göbekli Tepe, older than agriculture itself, whisper that civilization may be far more ancient and mysterious than we dare imagine. These monuments endure not because they were built to last, but because they were built with love. Love of craft, love of beauty, love of the divine spark that transforms ordinary human effort into extraordinary achievement. Their builders understood that creating something truly magnificent requires more than technical skill or abundant resources. It requires the willingness to dedicate oneself completely to a vision that may not be completed in one's lifetime, to work with patience and precision that honors both the material and the eternal purpose it serves. In our age of rapid construction and planned obsolescence, these ancient works stand as reminders of what becomes possible when human effort is guided by values deeper than efficiency or profit. They were created by people who understood that some things are worth building perfectly, even if perfection requires lifetimes to achieve. They remind us that the most important human achievements cannot be rushed, cannot be mass-produced, cannot be accomplished by anything less than the full engagement of human potential. The acoustic perfection of Mayan pyramids, creating bird calls from simple hand claps, teaches us that ancient builders understood the world as a place where physical actions could invoke spiritual responses. The impossible precision of Easter Island's Moai, standing sentinel over empty oceans, demonstrates that humans will create beauty and meaning even in the most isolated circumstances. The flowing joints of Inca stonework, defying our understanding of how solid rock behaves, suggest that reality itself may be more malleable than our rigid thinking allows. These lessons transcend archaeology and enter the realm of human possibility itself. They remind us that every limitation we accept may be simply a boundary waiting to be transcended. Every problem we consider unsolvable may need only the application of patience, precision, and vision that our ancestors took for granted. Every dream that seems too grand for human achievement may be exactly the kind of impossible task that calls forth capabilities we didn't know we possessed. As the night deepens and these ancient stories settle into your consciousness like sediment in still water, let them work their quiet magic. Let the patience of pyramid builders inspire your own long-term visions. Let the precision of Inca stonemasons guide your attention to detail in whatever craft you practice. Let the dedication of cave temple carvers remind you that the most meaningful work often takes place in quiet spaces, away from public attention, sustained by inner vision rather than external reward. The ancient architects we have encountered were not supernatural beings or possessors of lost technologies beyond our understanding. They were humans like ourselves who understood that consciousness, properly focused and sustained, can accomplish what scattered attention considers impossible. They worked with tools no more sophisticated than those available in any modern hardware store, yet they achieved results that humble our computer-guided precision instruments. Their secret was not superior technology, but superior application of the technology of human awareness itself. In your own life, whatever challenges you face, whatever dreams seem too ambitious for practical consideration, remember that ordinary humans once looked at raw cliff faces and saw hidden temples, gazed at rough stone and envisioned perfect sculpture, contemplated empty landscapes and imagined monuments that would inspire awe for thousands of years. They succeeded not because they possessed advantages you lack, but because they committed themselves fully to visions that transcended immediate possibility. The great building projects of antiquity were accomplished by people who understood that meaningful achievement requires the willingness to begin work that may not be completed in one's lifetime, to contribute one's best effort to purposes larger than personal benefit. They worked stone by stone, day by day, generation after generation, guided by shared visions that sustained effort across centuries. Their monuments endure, not only because they were built skillfully, but because they were built with the understanding that some things are worth building perfectly, regardless of the time and effort required. As you drift towards sleep, surrounded by the quiet presence of these ancient achievements, let their persistence remind you that the most important human works are those that outlast their creators, the builders of Angkor Wat, the carvers of Easter Island, the excavators of Ellora. None of them lived to see their projects achieve the legendary status they now hold. Yet they worked with the faith that meaningful effort creates ripples that extend far beyond immediate circumstances, that dedication to excellence becomes a gift to future generations. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson these architectural mysteries offer, that human consciousness, properly directed and sustained, can transform the impossible into the inevitable, not through force or cleverness, but through the patient application of attention, intention, and love to whatever task calls forth our best efforts. The ancient builders succeeded because they understood that consciousness itself is the ultimate tool, capable of finding solutions that purely mechanical approaches cannot discover, of sustaining effort across timescales that individual ambition cannot encompass. In the end, the true mystery of ancient architecture may not be how these structures were built, but why they continue to inspire us so deeply. Standing before them, we recognize something in ourselves, a capacity for vision that transcends practical necessity, a willingness to dedicate ourselves to purposes larger than personal survival, a deep knowing that consciousness and matter can work together to create beauty that outlasts empires. These ancient stones speak to something eternal within us, reminding us that we too are builders, that our thoughts and actions today are contributing to structures that will either inspire or disappoint those who come after us. As sleep carries you into its own mysterious architecture of dreams and restoration, may you build well in whatever realm of possibility you inhabit. May your efforts, however small they seem in the moment, contribute to the great human project of creating meaning. From matter, beauty from chaos, permanence from the fleeting materials of mortal existence. The ancient builders, whose work we have explored tonight, accomplished their impossible feats not through superior tools or technologies, but through the simple recognition that human potential, properly applied, knows no boundaries save those we accept as final. The stars that guided the alignment of pyramids shine down on you tonight as they have on every generation of humans who dared to dream in stone and achieve the impossible through dedication to something greater than themselves. In their quiet light, may you find the same patient certainty that sustained the hands that carved eternity into solid rock, that fitted massive stones with impossible precision, that created beauty that defies time itself. Sleep well, knowing that you carry within yourself the same consciousness that once made mountains move and turned human vision into eternal monument. And in the gentle darkness, as these ancient stories settle into the deepest layers of memory, the stones themselves whisper their final secret. That the greatest architecture is not built of granite or limestone, but of human dedication to purposes that outlast the builders themselves. Monuments of consciousness that inspire long after their creators have returned to dust, reminding each new generation that the impossible is simply the possible waiting for patient hands and loving hearts to make it real. Thank you for joining us on this 3-hour journey through ancient architecture that defies modern science. If these stories of impossible precision and timeless beauty have touched something within you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more peaceful explorations of history's greatest mysteries. Share this video with anyone who might find peace in these ancient stories, and let us know in the comments. Which of these architectural mysteries moved you most? What other impossible achievements from the past would you like us to explore together? Until we meet again in the quiet spaces where history whispers its deepest secrets, sleep well and dream of the impossible, made real through human dedication and love.